Brendan Hill of the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, Bainbridge Island retail shop, Paper and Leaf. I've been a fan of Brendan since he began with Blues Traveler as the drummer, something he continues to this day. Happy to be a part of Cannabis Radio and the Sexpod Comedy Co-op. Enjoy. This is Brendan Hill. And I can say Brendan Hill from Paper and Leaf because that's essentially why you're sitting here, right?
That's right. Yep, exactly.
And we're here in Seattle, and Bainbridge Island is just what, 4 miles away?
Yeah, it's a short ferry ride away. It's about 35 minutes across the Puget Sound, and it's a beautiful little bedroom community. I think 25,000 residents, lots of lawyers, doctors, retirees, but also there's a good amount of 30-somethings, 40-somethings. And it's a beautiful place to live. And
you have a retail shop called Paper and Leaf, and some of these same people come through your doors every day.
They do, yeah. And we actually, the interesting thing about Bainbridge Island, it was for the 502 vote for recreational, it was the highest percentage voting yes for it. So 72% of the population voted yes. So in a way, it's the coolest place to live.
Indeed. And as we've discussed before, be you Republican or Democrat, if you are running for office, you do not get as many votes as cannabis does. Cannabis always gets more votes than Republicans or Democrats.
It's very true. Yeah. I mean, you never see 75%, people voting Democrat or Republican. But for our little island, 72% of people said, yes, we want this to be legal, and we want to stop the stigma, and we want to stop putting people in jail for something which is obviously something which is beneficial to the public.
And how would you...
For adults.
Yeah, indeed. And how would you kind of describe the makeup? You shared with us, who is there? How do they think? I don't think it's a bunch of kind of, hippies.
Well, we have that on the island. I think, Bainbridge, actually Washington in general, I think was sort of it started out as sort of the last stop before the, Alaskan frontier. So you have that, the hippie mentality. A lot of people came out here in the 60s and 70s, bought land on Bainbridge Island. There was a big, sort of commune development there, which, people who come into the store every day, there's certain people that are just like, oh yeah, this place in the 70s was really cool. We grew our own and we just, chilled out. And but those people come in. But there's also the the professionals that come in. People ride their bikes to the shop. In their full-on sports gear, their bike gear. We have all different types of people, and we've got people from North Kitsap who come over the bridge, and on their way into Seattle, there's only one way to get through to the Olympic Peninsula. You can go through Bremerton or you can go up through Kingston, but it is just a major tourist destination as well. But you've got the ferry that takes you to I-305, then takes you right up and takes you into the peninsula. And so we get a lot of people come through just to check out the island, and they come to the store because it's a destination.
There we go. And that's who's coming into the store, and what's in the store I want to get back to in a minute because I want to go all the way back. Okay. If I listen to you closely, I can hear that there is some sort of accent that doesn't sound like it's Washingtonian.
Right. Well, I was born in London in 1970, so I was a disco kid. And my family moved here in 76 to New Jersey. And so I grew up my formative years in Princeton, New Jersey. My parents are both Irish citizens. I've got Irish citizenship as well. And we used to go back, my mom had 4 sisters. I've got, cousins all over the place, all over England and Europe. But, I still feel an affinity to the old country. But my wife and I moved out here in 93. And we made a home in Eugene, Oregon at first. We lived in New York for 5 or 6 years, and then we moved to Eugene, Oregon, and then we decided that it was a little bit boring compared to Manhattan, and so we decided we wanted to move to actual metropolis. So we moved up to Seattle. We lived right in Leshai for almost 10 years, or 8 and a half, 9 years. And then we had my daughter, Annabelle, and she was getting to be school age, and we just wanted to change, so we moved across the water to Bainbridge, and that's been our home since 2005.
All right. So those are the geographies that bring you to Bainbridge.
And that's where I get my accent from, Lashai.
Indeed. Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. As opposed to Leicestershire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So, again, those are the geographies. Now let's talk about the occupations. You said you spent your formative years in Princeton. What was your first job out of high school?
I worked actually in high school. I worked in a flower shop, funny enough, and I was kind of a grunt, like a minimum wage employee. But that's actually where I first got into playing music when I was actually sort of inducted into a band. There was a hardcore band. I don't know if you remember hardcore, but 1, 2, 3, 4, do, 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 do. And,
sure, of course.
I was a drummer, and we had this driver who was always stoned, who would take these deliveries of flowers to people. And he was in this hardcore band called COD, which I can't give you the what the letters mean because it was too graphic. But their drummer broke his foot, and they had this gig at City Gardens. I don't know if you know City Gardens in Trenton.
No, I don't.
In New Jersey. Anyway, it was where thrash and hardcore, like Black Flag, all these Dead Kennedys, Dayglow Abortions, to name a few,
sure,
would be playing there, every week. And so it was Boots and Braces, that kind of crowd. And here I was, this kid who was 14 years old, and playing with these 25-year-old thrash guys. And so they got me so baked for this gig at City Gardens, and I wasn't allowed in because I was under 21. So anyway, they licked their wrist, put the stamp on, and I was this little 14-year-old kid, and I went up there, and I was like, all right, let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, and there was actually a riot. There was like a fight between the long-haired, the guys that called the thrashers, and the skinheads. Big fight. I had to get ushered out of there, and came back, and my parents were like, well, how was the gig, son? And I was like, it was good. It was good. And so that was my first kind of real experience of playing, very energetic music, baked, and it was a lot of fun. But anyway, that's where my music kind of started out.
Just quickly, did you explain the engagement to your parents as though it were the Mods versus the Rockers?
I think they weren't too sure what I was doing, because there was this guy who came in, this like old Datsun, station wagon with a lot of band gear, and he was like obviously 25, and I was 14, and they were just like, I don't know what he's doing, but at least he's out of the house, that kind of thing. Because I used to play down my basement all the time. And I'm a drummer, so that anytime I got out of the house was probably a good thing for them.
They took it,
but they love me. They're very supportive of all my music, all my endeavors, and to be quite frank, when I told them about Paper and Leaf and my foray into recreational cannabis and opening a shop, I was very apprehensive telling them what this new venture was.
Right.
And they were actually so surprised and happy and supportive. And my mom has, pain from a couple of, hip surgeries and things. And she's coming out in a couple of weeks. And she's just like, I can't wait to try all the products. But, please save some cream for me.
That's fantastic.
It's going to be, I can't wait, because she lives in New Jersey, which is they have a small medical program. I think they're working on it, the rules. But,
sure, they're working on it. That's one way to put it.
And but it's really tough on the East Coast. So I'd love if they moved out here, but at least I can now I have a shop and I have some actual people that have really good knowledge. We're not actually don't have our endorsement. We have our endorsement. We don't have our actual license to give advice, but I know a few people who can give some advice.
There we go. Exactly.
I know some people.
You know a couple of people. Well, let's maybe get into some of the people that you know. It started with that engagement when you were 14.
Yes.
Where did it go from there? Let's just get through it.
Sure. Yeah. So I was in this high school jazz band at school, and that's where I kind of learned how to play the drum kit. And my freshman year, it was actually, just to give you a small anecdote, the movie Whiplash. I'm sure you've seen the movie Whiplash.
Absolutely.
That was actually about my high school. It was the person who wrote that script was a drummer in the high school studio jazz band from Princeton High School. And
my goodness.
So, but he came about 5 or 6 years after we all graduated. So anyway, that teacher who's portrayed in the film was, he was maybe a little bit exaggerated his, how much he berated the poor drummer, but there was a lot of that, in this classroom because this teacher was a professional musician. His name was Tony Biancasino, and he was a saxophone player, and he used to play professionally. And he drove all the way from Philadelphia to Princeton, about an hour and a half drive, and he would come screeching in his 9-passenger van because he had 8 kids. He was Italian, and he would come in 5 minutes late, and he'd be like, "Okay, all sweaty, already have a 5 o'clock shadow by 8:15." And we'd start right off, and Whiplash, the songs or the movie's title, was one of the songs we performed at the Berklee College of Music in Boston's high school jazz competition. Anyway, so just to bring you into speed, that was where my freshman year I started as second chair in the studio jazz band, and we were preparing for this Berklee high school jazz competition. And Tony Biancasino, the teacher, heard John Popper playing harmonica in the hallway, just sitting by his locker, total, movie scene. And he was just like, "You, follow me," and took John in. And, John came in, and we played, I think it was joint venture. It was bum, 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 and there's a big solo section. And John just pulled out his harmonica and wailed. It was unbelievable, and the whole band was just like, "Holy mackerel!" That's going to win us, the competition. So, and that's what the teacher was looking for, was that edge, something to make you special. Right. So anyway, we went on to win that year. But the point of the teacher and Whiplash and all that was that this teacher instilled in me and John and all the musicians in the band to encourage us to have outside bands. And so I'd already had like a little basement band with my older brother. And so this kind of inspiration, I asked John if he'd join my band. And so we were called The Establishment, but John was like, "That's not a very good name." So we became the Blues Band, which is also not a very good name. But we went from doing like, Romantics covers to George Thorogood and to John Lee Hooker and Jimi Hendrix. And so that evolved through a couple of years. Chan joined the band a couple of years later while we were juniors. And we started playing, more like the influences started coming out: Led Zeppelin, Grateful Dead. Bob Sheehan joined the band. Once Bob joined the band, we started smoking pot. And my little basement, we weren't allowed to smoke in the house, so obviously anything. But we went out across the street to this little seating area, and we used to just, smoke some pot and then go back down and just jam for hours and hours. And that's how, the first record, and we moved to New York, and we got signed right away. So, the rest is kind of the scene that we created in New York, which, funnily enough, I was thinking about it the other day, is sort of the same feeling as what's going on in Washington right now. We moved to New York in '87, and prior to '87, there was this law in New York City called the Cabaret Law. Mm-hmm. And the Cabaret Law was instilled just for, bureaucratic, whatever, to get fees out of these little bars. And so they had to pay $1,500 if they wanted more than 3 musicians on the stage.
If they wanted to have a cabaret license.
Yes, exactly. So all these little bars and pubs were like, "No, we can't afford that." And so these poor bands would have to have like the drummer, the guitar player, maybe the singer on the stage, and then the bass player would be sitting at the bar, and then the saxophone player would be sitting at the pool table. And it was just like, that's how they'd have to do it for years and years. So the year we moved to New York, '87, the Cabaret Law was lifted. And so all these bars, any place that had like a, 3-inch stage that they built out of a 2x4 and a, 3/4-inch plywood would have a full band. And so there was all these venues. And so, us as a young band, and we weren't awesome at that point, but we just were able to play almost every night. And
what were some of the names?
So Manda Kane was one. Nightingales was really the first place. We had the Monday night, and I remember we opened up for the Aquanettas, and that was our first gig in New York. And I was actually in a music business class at the New School, which is where I went to school. And it was the guy who brought the Beatles to America.
Yeah. Brian Epstein?
Yeah, not Epstein, but the promoter guy. Anyway, he was teaching this class in music business, and I remember seeing Chan and Bobby in the little window of the door, like, "Come on, we got a gig," and I'm gesturing like, "Come on, you got to get out of class, we got a gig," and some band had dropped out, and so I jumped up and I was like, "I got a gig," and so ran out of there, and the guy was like, "Good, God bless you," And
the one class where you can get away with that, right?
And he actually showed up at we headlined Madison Square Garden New Year's Eve, and I remembered that moment. I invited him to that show, and he came, and he was really proud. It was like 8 years later. But.
So we could spend a whole lot of time talking about this, and I do want to. I've told you in the past that I'm certainly a fan and was a very big fan, and still am a very big fan. So thank you for the music.
But just to wrap that up, so the cabaret law was lifted, and all these little places were open. So similar to Washington State, there was all this underground scene that was happening. It was very disorganized. The medicinal scene was very disorganized. Nobody had cards and this registry thing. But all of a sudden, with 502 coming into play, these people are starting, everyone's starting to get organized. And of course, it's not a perfect system. But I think what you're seeing is the stigma starting to lift, the black market starting to go away. And in the next 6 months to a year, you're going to see all these medicinal places that have been treating, reputably treating these clients and customers, giving access to well-needed medicine. You're going to start seeing them actually legitimized and given licenses. And I think that's a great thing. It's, obviously it's competition for the recreational shops now, but I think overall it's a much better thing to have access in all these neighborhoods and from people that are very knowledgeable, bringing them under the wing of the 502, ensuring that the products are going to be still tested and given that sort of, mark of seal of purity, and so that when people get a product, they know it's going to be approved and not have anything in it, which up to now has been, before 502, it was a question mark.
Absolutely a question mark. And I do want to try to kind of continue the analogy between the two times and two industries, because in the late 80s, but early 90s and mid 90s, music industry was changing. Obviously, eventually came Napster, but there was one component that I noticed, Horde Tour, the many tours, the many festivals that started in the early and mid 90s. That is the way that that live music occurs now, and it started then. And so I just want to kind of continue that analogy from the fact that that's what's happening now in cannabis, specifically in Washington, and we've got a whole new way of doing business.
Yeah, I mean, the Horde Tour was started by us and Spin Doctors, Widespread, Panic, Fish, and this band called Aquarium Rescue Unit, which is an amazing band. If you ever get to see them, see them. They're, they never got the acclaim that they should have, but it's Colonel Bruce Hampton, O'Teal Bainbridge, Matt Herring, Jeff Sipes, Matt Mundy. So if you do just this little tip, go online and look for "Time Is Free" from the Boulder Theater in I think it's in Boulder, obviously, but they did a live show. It's amazing. This band was so hot, like 90, 92, 93. We took them out on tour. Anyway, so they were one of the acts on Horde, and what Horde did was it sort of unified these 4 or 5 bands that had their own little pockets of fan bases. And basically, the Widespread was, from Athens, down south. Mm-hmm. Fish was from, up north.
Vermont. Right?
Yeah, Vermont, exactly. We were sort of New York. Spin Doctors were New York. And Aquarium Rescue Unit were also from the south. And so we kind of said, well, we should just put something together that's not a, standard festival, but something which is a moving, traveling festival. And it's like the Horde, Horizons of Rock developing everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so we put together this package, and we did, I think, 8 or 9 gigs that first year. And it was, a big success. We had a lot of, Spin Doctors, their Little Miss Can't Be Wrong and Pocketful of Kryptonite came out. And
big songs then, absolutely.
The 2 Princes and all that. And so, I remember the moment when we were on stage, and I think they were the 3rd band on, I think we were playing Connecticut, or maybe they were the 2nd or something. And I remember seeing everyone singing, won't you? Dun, 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 dun. And it was amazing because none of us in this, out of the 5 bands had ever had a pop song on the radio.
Right.
And so this was like, wow, it's happening. Yeah. For these guys. And we were insanely jealous, but it was great.
But it was great, I swear.
Yeah.
But in terms of industry collaboration, what did you learn from putting together the Horde Tour and having that be successful that you're maybe applying here in cannabis?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, is that it's not I don't look at it as a competitive thing where we're trying to beat out other shops, or there's going to be this kind of, I think there's enough room for everyone. And I think what we're all kind of learning is that it's about setting yourself apart and providing a service. And so what Steve Kessler, my partner, and I decided for Bainbridge was it's a special community. It's it's a destination. A lot of families live there, so we wanted to make sure that the edible section reflected that we don't have chocolates or brownies or cookies, anything that could be mistaken by a kid and look very tasty, like no gummy bears and that kind of thing. And so that was one of the things. And the other thing was there were a lot of people on the island that hadn't smoked in a long time or consumed. And so we wanted to make it feel like it was a welcome, kind of like a lecture hall or like an art gallery. Mm-hmm. And so we put these boxes on the wall. I'm not sure if you've been to the shop yet, but we put these boxes on the wall, lights in the boxes. And so each grower has their own box. And so you can see this beautiful product that these producers have spent so much time and energy and love and caring and singing to these plants and caring for them. They're in these beautiful boxes, and people can go up and just look and say, that one, what's that one like? Or that one, what's that one? And so they're not kind of pushed through a line where they have to decide on the spot. So they can go there and they can talk to our very knowledgeable staff and say, I'm looking for sativa, or maybe they don't even know what a sativa is, or indica. And so they get that 5-10 minutes talk, or if it's an hour, we've got a nice long 12-foot elm table that is kind of like, where we have conversations with people and where we do little Cannabis 101 classes. And we've got one next week, which is going to be 3 days long, which is edibles, vapes, and flower. And we're going to have some growers and people, producers and processors coming in. And it's just, I think the community that we live in appreciates the fact that we're not pushing anything on anybody. We're not trying to get people to upsell people or do anything like that. We're just saying, come in and see what's going on, what's happened in the last 25 years. And if you want to try something out, we'd love to show you what's available. And it's kind of like the boutique-y vibe, but and I know that's used a lot in retail nowadays. But for us, we feel like we've got something special. And so when we talk about the entire cannabis community, I think it's about having shops like ours and having shops that are similar to ours or doing the same thing, or having shops which cater to people who just want to get in, get out. They're in a rush or whatever. They don't want to learn about anything. They just they know what they need. And
right.
And I think there's a room for everybody. And if you can find out what community you're in, service that community, I think there's enough for everyone to be happy and to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And the shop that you mentioned is completely different than Triple C, who we just spoke to, and
Nice guy.
absolutely, and NWPRC. These are all three different applications to the same type of principle. Yeah. Just like Widespread Panic and Fish and Blues Traveler are all different things which you can enjoy in tandem.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it all works together. And once if we all play well with each other and show that that it works here in Washington State, I think people who come up from California to kind of see how it's going between us and Colorado and some of the other states and Oregon, I think they're going to see that there is a way to do this correctly and to make it so it's safe and so that it doesn't get in the hands of kids, which I think is an important thing. And I think getting the medicine to people that need it and getting it to them at a good price, because I think that's also another element which is going to be important, is not taxing the medicinal portion as much. That means California is going to go recreational and medicinal, which will mean a huge, once California goes, so does the country. Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to see a lot of states say, okay, well, listen, if the black market is here and has been here, and these other states are actually found a way to pay for drug and rehabilitation and counseling.
Or education in Colorado.
Education, exactly. Or have been able to use this for schools or for, their infrastructures. I mean, if Michigan were able to do this recreationally and medicinally, we wouldn't be hearing about these roads that are being, going into disrepair for the last 50 years and that need fixing, all our bridges. And so, I'm not going to say cannabis is going to fix everything, but it certainly is something which is, people equate it to alcohol, and I think it's better than alcohol because it doesn't make you, I think the abuse for domestic violence and, criminal behavior and drinking while driving, I think you have a lot more problems with alcohol than you do with cannabis.
Absolutely. Marijuana is safer, as Steve Fox would say.
Exactly, yeah.
So the final 3 questions, I'll ask you them and then I'll let you know what they are and then I'll ask you them in order. What has most surprised you in cannabis? What has most surprised you in life? And then on the soundtrack of your life, what is one song that we should know that Brendan Hill listens to often? So first things first, what has most surprised you in cannabis?
Just the variety of things that have been coming out lately. We just got a product in our store called Bond, which is I guess a sexual enhancement product. And so that came in today and it surprised me. So that happened today.
That's very surprising, indeed.
And I can't wait to try it myself.
And that's there's more than one of those out there, by the way.
Yes, there are. And I haven't tried any of them yet.
Yeah.
So
I think fore is another one, just so you know.
Okay, good.
Yeah. What has most surprised you in life?
How quick it goes. I'm 45, and it just feels like yesterday that I was just kind of starting with music and moving to New York, and then it just went by very quickly. But I'm really excited by every day waking up and either going to on an airplane to a gig, or I'm going to the shop to make people happy. In both situations, I've got a wonderful family. I've got 3 kids that I love very much, and my wife, and so some of my hobbies have sort of gone to the wayside. I've got a sailboat and a 1970 Chevelle, which haven't been taken out for quite a while because I just don't have the time. But I'm hoping in a couple of years that I'll get back to those. They'll still be there.
Yeah, there you go. Congratulations.
The boat won't be at the bottom of the Kingston Sound, but whatever.
Yeah, and congratulations on the 70 Chevelle. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I love it. She's great. Blah, 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 blah.
What would your wife say, do you think, about this crazy life that you lead?
Well, we talked about it. We were very apprehensive at the beginning, but I've known her since we were 17. We met the first week we were in college, and so she has been along this whole ride with me, and together we've seen a lot of stuff happen. And we've had these ultra high moments where she's seen the band take off, and she's seen low moments. We lost our bass player in '99, but we picked ourselves up, and we've done a lot of exciting moves, moving out west, not knowing. I think we knew one person in Seattle when we moved here, and we bought a house together here, and then we got married. We had these 3 kids, and so musician's life is not always the most stable, and so I think she's been a rock for me. And so when we decided to do this, it was a couple of like, really, this is what we're going to be doing, and I think it's been an exciting moment for us, because it's it takes a lot of energy, risk, a lot of sleepless nights. There's a lot of compliance that you have to do. There's a lot of worrying, but I think we've gone through it together, and hand in hand, open-eyed, we've gotten through it.
Plus, you're so much more of a square here as a cannabis business executive than you are as a musician.
It's true. I don't know. People don't. I think they respect the music, in some circles a little bit more, but it depends. They're both kind of risky, out of the general frame of things. But I guess that means that I'm doing something right. Is if I can scare enough people, I'm doing something right.
There you go. That's a good one. We'll have to quote you on that. Okay. Speaking of respecting the music, give us one song that's definitely on Brendan Hill's soundtrack. Again,
I listen to kind of a little bit more obscure music. I love old music. Jazz.
Are you a Zappa fan?
I am a Zappa fan. Yeah. But there's one band which I don't think got enough credit aside from Aquarium Rescue Unit. They're a band out of Baltimore called Trout, and so there's a record they made, and it's a really sad story because they were a great band. We took them out for a couple of weeks, and they had this one CD called Another One Lost. And so if you can, Spotify that or buy it, hopefully.
Better.
Another One Lost. And so they were a killer band, and they've got a song called Stutter. And we used to play this record on the tour bus after gigs, and we'd all either be tipsy or have smoked a little bit, and this was kind of like our theme song for about 2 or 3 tours. Like whenever the sort of conversation sort of died down, people started zoning out, someone would throw in the MP3 of Another One Lost, and we would just crank it, and it's a great record. It's moody, atmospheric, kind of a little techno, but Lake Trout. Anyway, so their second record, they recorded it, but then the record company decided that it wasn't good enough, and so they buried it, and so that the band basically disbanded because the record company didn't have the balls to put it out. So, which was sad. So
Yeah, that's almost as dumb as suing consumers.
that's exactly, yes, you're exactly right. So, but I think it just goes to show you have to stick to your art, and even if the record company doesn't put it out, I think they somehow got a bootleg copy of it out. And they've got a lot of live records, but they ultimately did break up, and they're all doing different stuff. But that's a great record. That's part of my soundtrack.
There we go. Brendan Hill, thank you so much.
Thank you, Seth.
And there you have Brendan Hill. I can't wait to get up to Bainbridge Island and check out what they've got going on within Paper and Leaf. And it was great to talk to Brendan. Great to get some of those early Blues Travelers notes. It is great to be on Cannabis Radio and the Sex Pot Comedy Co-op.